Hello everybody, this video is a repair video for the ASUS GeForce RTX NVIDIA 2080 dual fan graphics card processor. If that's your GPU and you're looking to fix it, great! I had to fix mine too and I could not find a single video detailing the repair, so I decided to make one myself. Some footnotes: I don't really have a good setup for recording this, so I did my best with what I had, and it's a pretty easy repair, so if you are feeling intimidated by having to handle your graphics card, don't. Replacing the fan on this one specifically is not too tricky. So let's hop into the repair. For the last few weeks, the rightmost fan on my GPU was not spinning correctly. It was wobbling, occasionally getting so far out of alignment that it was making a terrible grating noise. On the other hand, the leftmost fan was spinning just fine. And sometimes if I tried to spin these with my fingers by opening up the case, I would notice that the rightmost fan was just a little gummed up. So I figured I could probably repair it, and it turns out I was right. So I'm going to go through the powering down of the computer, checking to make sure that I've completely discharged any extra electricity by pressing the power button and taking off the front face. I have this upright mounted GPU, which makes it a little easier. In order to take it out, I needed to first unplug it from the motherboard, unplug it from my monitors, that's these two plugs right here, and then I also had to unscrew it from the computer itself. So those first two plugs, the ones that are on the top right, they're pretty easy to take out. They slide right out. That goes to the power supply, and here we go. There's going to be a little latch, by the way, on the bottom you'll need to lift up when you're taking out your graphics card. So here it is, free from its shell, covered in some of my hair. My fancy pants graphics card. That's probably the most expensive piece of equipment I own in my entire house, which makes it very intimidating to handle. But as long as you're pretty careful, you should be all right. The first thing to notice is that your GPU is going to be held onto a shell, and that shell actually detaches pretty easily, and that's where the fans are. These silver bordered screws on the back of the graphics card are where you need to detach it. If you look on the side of the graphics card, you'll notice that these do attach directly to that shell, that front face. I'm not sure if there's a technical word for this. This is the problem of not really my wheelhouse. I might be a mechanical engineer, but I'm not this kind of engineer. So take out all of those little screws that have that silver bordering, and you'll be able to just cleanly lift off that shell. It is going to have one plug in it that does connect to the fans, so you can leave that plugged in for now or take it out because you're going to be replacing the fans anyway. I'm only going to be replacing the rightmost fan, but the repairs for them are pretty much the same. I ordered my replacement fans online. They came in a batch of two, so there's the left and rightmost fan, and they are different. So make sure you are ordering the fan you want. The one on the right is typically referred to as B, and the one on the left is referred to as A. In order to get the fan off of the heatsink, you need to unscrew it, which is a pain in the butt because they put the screws underneath the fan blade. There we go, I've got all of these screws there. And there's also one more screw that keeps the wires latched to the heatsink. Once you've got those screws off, you can actually unplug the wires and take out the fan itself. Notably, you are going to need to take both wires out of the way in order to unsandwich them, where they're kind of latched underneath this piece of metal. It actually took me quite a bit of time to unlatch them. I fast-forwarded through it because you don't need to watch me struggle with my fingers for 5 minutes. So here is the new fan. I'm going to thread the wires underneath here so they can sit in a little chamber, and I want to screw it on so I can get these wires back in place. If it helps you, you can label which wire plugs into which port. I didn't find it too necessary just because there's not too many here. So once again, I'm struggling with these wires, trying to get them back nestled underneath this little metal latch. Unfortunately, this metal latch didn't seem to let up at all, so I did my best to be careful with it. As a reminder, because this is a very expensive piece of equipment, the heatsink is actually the safest part of it to handle, because if you bend those pieces a little tiny bit, you won't be destroying anything important. It's that board that's underneath everything else that you really have to be careful with. All right, so I've got the wires back in place, and I am plugging this into the two little ports. I wish I could get a little detail close up there. Two little ports, and now there's that same wire right here that needs to be plugged back into the front shell of the graphics card. The B wire is the one that has two ports on it, and that is the one that does connect to the front. There we go. All the wires are back in place, and now it's time to screw the fan back in. So same as before, you've got one screw that's next to the wiring harness. And of course, I'm struggling getting these teeny tiny screws back in place because I have to go through the fan blades. Whoever's idea this was not great. Also, at this point in the video, I do have my anti-static wristband still on, but that's just because I didn't feel like taking it off between handling the things inside of the computer and handling the things outside of the computer. If you have a good way to ground yourself while you're doing these repairs, that's great. Also, if it is winter where you are, or just you're in a really dry area, try to get the humidifier on. It's a good way to help protect your equipment while you're working on it. Okay, screws are connected. Whew. I did speed up that part because you do not need to watch me struggle. And behold, my fans! We're going to go ahead and get this faceplate back on. It should snap pretty cleanly back into place. And checking to make sure the fans don't have any interference with anything. And testing it with a bit of compressed air as well to see that they both spin and stop with about the same amount of friction. And they look good. So it's time to reattach that faceplate, the front, to the rest of the graphics card. So taking those same screws and putting them back in to those silver circled holes. I did 2 passes on all of these in order to first screw them in and then make sure that I had an even level of tightness across all of the different screws. This is just a way to make sure that I'm evenly distributing how it's clutching together and making it less likely to wiggle loose in the future because this is a vibrating part. It does have fans on it and it will likely be vibrating over time. I'm not really interested in putting Loctite or anything like that on here. So I just did my best with what I have. And if I hear it rattling loose in the future, well, I can fix it again. So now reinstalling the graphics card, making sure that this latch is not in the way while I attach it to the motherboard. That is a part that you do not want to damage because if you mess up that connection, you're going to be out of luck. Next, for a bit more support, I'm screwing it back into the case. This way I can feel more comfortable plugging in the wires because that does take a little bit of force. And I'm gripping the underside of this to make sure that I'm not bending the piece that connects to the motherboard for this mounting. It's all plugged back in, so it's time to turn the computer back on. I plugged in my monitors as well. And I didn't even put the front place back on because I just want to make sure it works. And lo and behold, pressing the power button, and the fans, they spin oh so beautifully. That's what I like to see. Well, I hope this video helps you if you're making this repair to your graphics card. I know something like that would have helped if it existed for me. Also, if you're making other repairs to this graphics card, there are breakdown videos available online, so you can watch people dissect the card and show off all the insides. If you're looking for one of those, just look it up. YouTube is full of secrets. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope your graphics card repair goes excellently.